We mean one thing. It is time for the Masters. And of course, on Wednesday, that's when we always have the chairman's press conference. Chairman Fred S. Ridley giving us about 40 minutes today talking about all of the important information happening around the tournament.
It was a tradition unlike any other, until it suddenly wasn't. For decades, the Masters stood as golf's untouchable constant, a sacred ground where history was preserved, not rewritten. But 3 days ago, a stunning leak from a county planning office shattered that illusion. Newly verified details about the 2026 Masters reveal a cold, calculated power play that could tear the sport apart from the inside. This isn't evolution, it's a declaration of war. Augusta National, long known for its absolute control over every blade of grass, every cheer, every second of broadcast, now finds itself at the center of a silent coup. Subscribe and join us as we expose the battle unfolding behind the gates of golf's most guarded institution.
And encouraging the leaders of the organizations involved to try to work together to come up with a solution. But I think we all agree that 4 times a year is not enough to have the great players of the game together.
The battles consuming the rest of professional golf were never supposed to reach Augusta, at least, that's what we were told. But the truth now emerging is far more explosive. The war between the PGA Tour and LIV Golf didn't stop at Magnolia Lane, it slipped quietly beneath it. For 2 years, Augusta National's chairman and its green-jacketed members have watched from their fortified sanctuary as the sport splintered, maintaining a facade of neutrality while issuing invitations according to their own sacred criteria. But that silence, we now know, wasn't peaceful, it was pressure building. The first cracks didn't show in a press release but at last year's Champions Dinner, described by one attendee as polite but icy, a room full of legends who no longer spoke the same language. The divide between old guard tradition and new money disruption was unmistakable, a cold war fought over claret jugs and pimento cheese sandwiches. And then came the moment the veil finally ripped, not by the hands of a journalist, but a government clerk. At exactly 4:17 p.m. last Tuesday, a junior employee at the Augusta Richmond County Planning Department uploaded a batch of routine construction permit files. Hidden among them was a folder labeled AG 20267774B, filed under a barely noticeable LLC called Peach State Heritage, and nothing about it was routine. The name was designed to deflect attention, but it failed instantly. A local zoning lawyer casually scanning the public portal out of habit spotted the documents, and the address was unmistakable, 2604 Washington Road, Augusta National. The initial filings mentioned routine improvements to patron entry routes and tweaks to competitive infrastructure, the usual dull bureaucratic language. But hidden deep in Appendix D, under a subsection titled Competitive Area Realignment, was the phrase that detonated inside golf's inner circles: the establishment of a new tournament-specific qualifying zone, physically and systematically separated from all existing tour-sanctioned facilities. A source inside the PGA Tour's legal team, speaking under strict anonymity, told us exactly what that meant. This isn't a new driving range. This is legalese for creating a sovereign qualifying body. They're building a firewall. They're preparing to cut the cord. 48 hours later, the leak hit social media and the quiet of the golf world evaporated. The global reaction was instant, emotional, and violently divided. #MastersPurge trended worldwide as purists mourned the death of an era. This is blasphemy, one account with 500,000 followers wrote. They're trading their soul for control. But in the shadows of LIV Golf, the mood was entirely different. A leaked message from a high-ranking LIV player to his captain simply read, "Finally, they see the future. The old model is dead." The split carried into the sports networks. On ESPN's Get Up, an analyst insisted Augusta had not only the right but the responsibility to shield the Masters from the tour's political chaos, calling it an act of preservation. Over on the Golf Channel, however, the rebuttal came sharp and furious. By creating its own qualification pathway, Augusta was no longer identifying the best golfer in the world, they argued, it was hand-selecting its own champion. And as the pundits sparred, the players themselves fell into stunned silence, PGA loyalists terrified of being cut out, and LIV defectors suddenly believing they might be granted a path back to legitimacy. Golf wasn't just fractured anymore, it was pulverized. So why now? What triggered this seismic shift? Our investigation points not to sport, but to sovereignty. A financial analyst who tracks private equity in golf told us that the Masters' long-term broadcast rights are approaching a renegotiation window unlike anything in the tournament's history, and by detaching itself from the official World Golf Ranking and the broader tour ecosystem, Augusta National is positioning itself as a standalone global media empire rather than a mere tournament host. This theory aligns with growing whispers of a discreet meeting in late March between Augusta representatives and the Saudi Public Investment Fund, a meeting both sides denied despite flight records confirming a PIF-linked Gulfstream G650 on the ground in Augusta for 6 hours on March 28. The motive, then, appears cold and calculated. The 2026 overhaul isn't about extending the 13th hole, it's about seizing control of the narrative, the revenue streams, and ultimately the meaning of greatness in golf. The Green Jackets aren't choosing sides in the PGA LIV war, they're claiming the battlefield itself. What emerges for 2026 is a Masters reshaped from the inside out, a smaller, curated field selected by Augusta's own opaque proprietary metric blending past performance, global influence, and commercial value, signaling the end of the Cinderella qualifiers who once clawed their way in through world rankings. In their place will stand a roster of established stars and hand-picked contenders. Even the fan experience is shifting, with changes in patron ingress hinting at a more stratified, premium-heavy environment, fewer general admission badges, more corporate hospitality, and roars through the pines that may sound more muted, more controlled. The Masters will still crown a champion, and someone will still wear the green jacket, but the soul of the event, the democratic, merit-based spirit that defined it for nearly a century, will be irrevocably transformed. This is the new Augusta, a masterpiece of control, forged for a fractured era. Yet one question lingers: did the gentlemen of Augusta National, in their bid to save their tournament, end up sacrificing its heart?